Hi, it's Anna here. Welcome back to my channel, the best place for parents or educators who want to learn and evolve with their children. In today's video, I want to discuss the different learning styles that we all have, including our children. And by learning styles, I mean the best and most effective way each of us learn and retain information. I have found this information so interesting as it helped me reflect on my own learning style and what works best for me. But I also found it so fascinating in understanding my children's learning style so I can be more effective with them. And that is the goal of the video, giving you the knowledge you need so that you can tweak how you discipline your children in order to be more effective with them. The funny thing is, parents and teachers often rely on verbal commands or instructions most of the time. And this can be effective for auditory learners, but if your kids don't respond to that, it can be very ineffective. So let's get started. Neil Fleming, who was a teacher from New Zealand, developed a model called VARK, V-A-R-K. And this is the acronym of 4 main learning styles that apply to all of us: visual, auditory, read and write, and kinesthetic. It's important to let you know here that the VAC model has been widely criticized, and every time scientists have tried to prove this theory, they have failed. In fact, some research has shown that teaching students according to different learning styles has no effect on how they perform on assessments. But I think this information shouldn't be used with black and white thinking in mind, where you solely communicate to your child in that way. We all have more than one learning style, and in life, we need to be able to learn in different ways. For example, when you are learning an instrument, you actually need all 4 learning styles. I personally think that this information is very helpful when you have tried different things with your kids and they aren't getting the message. So this is merely an invitation to try different methods, to be more creative in your communication. And it's important to understand that some people have no preference at all and they can adapt to different learning styles. And some other people have 1 or 2 preferences, 1 or 2 predominant learning styles. So in a nutshell, the point of understanding your child's learning style is to help you alleviate homework frustrations and be more effective in your communication and discipline. I will explain each one of them, and I will also give you practical examples on how you can use it with your kids. So let's start with the first one, visual. As the name suggests, visual learners learn best by seeing. But it is not visual just because it is seen or shown on a screen. The most helpful tools for visual learners are graphic information, such as graphs, diagrams, illustrations, charts, and maps. In fact, a most correct description of this learning style would be graphic rather than visual. Visual learners will often highlight or underline words and rely on images, fonts, and graphics to retain knowledge and information. It's their way of emphasizing design over words and sounds. They should draw their own maps or diagrams to understand information and will use colors, fonts, and other visual stimulus to create interesting visuals. They tend to excel in art, photography, and film and love to draw and experiment in color. Visual learners do well when they are asked to imagine what something looks like, drawing mind maps and diagrams to explain situations. And they can often picture things in their minds that others can't. Doodling while listening helps them retain attention because the act of drawing keeps the visual learner's mind active and engaged. So here are some questions to ask yourself or your child to understand if they are visual learners. Are art, beauty, and aesthetics important to you or them? Does visualizing information in your mind help you remember it better? Do you have to see information in order to remember it? And do you pay close attention to body language? So if your child is a visual learner, it might not be enough to verbally explain something because they may not be able to make sense of the information. They need a tangible representation to process the information. So a great way to do this would be to draw a specific scenario and show them how they could behave better next time. Or you could ask them to draw their feelings on paper. Let's move on to auditory learners. These learners learn best by hearing information. So they learn best from listening to other people talking through lectures, podcasts, group discussions, recordings, etc. They are very good at remembering information that they are told. They also like talking out loud as well as talking to themselves. Often people with this preference want to sort things out by speaking first, rather than sorting their ideas in their mind first and then speaking. They may say out loud what has already been said, or ask a question that has already been answered or that is obvious. And that's because they have the need of saying it themselves and hearing it in their own words. This made me reflect on my own childhood because I must have had friends who were auditory learners because they literally did not need to study as long as they listened during the class, which was definitely not the case for me. One other point is that they tend to excel in singing or playing an instrument and have strong emotions in reaction to music. And they do well when they are asked to use a sound in a task, like for example, making up a rhyme. So here are some questions that you can ask yourself or your child to identify your or their learning style. Do you create songs to help remember information? Does reading out loud help you remember information better? Do you prefer to listen to class lectures rather than reading from the textbook? And would you prefer to listen to a recording of your class lectures or a podcast rather than going over your class notes? So the good news if your child is an auditory learner is that simply verbally explaining things is enough for them. And in general, they benefit from one-on-one discussion to help them understand something, as they like to talk through a problem. They would also love audiobooks and making up songs to remember things. Now, let's move on to read and write learners. These learners prefer to learn information that is displayed as words and text. They often have a great love of reading and love to write many notes. This style is often described as having a way with words, and they do best when they are asked to read or write about something. People who prefer this modality are often addicted to PowerPoint, the internet, lists, diaries, quotations, and words. Because read and write learners need to digest the information presented to them, it's not enough to just discuss the material. They benefit much more from physical assignments and worksheets. These students will often write notes of material and rewrite the notes over and over again, and they will also read the material over and over again. So here are some questions for you or for your child. Do you enjoy making lists, reading definitions, and creating presentations? Do you find reading your textbook to be a great way to learn new information? Do you take a lot of notes during class and while reading textbooks? And do you prefer it when teachers make use of overheads and handouts? I'm definitely a read and write learner. I've always had to take notes during lectures and summarize my notes over and over again to retain information. And is it any wonder that I've started this YouTube channel where I summarize books and information for you? If your child is a read and write learner, you can try communicating to them through little notes or reading books about specific topics you'd like to help them with. And there are so many children's books that discuss topics like empathy, problem solving, and learning from our mistakes, for example. And these kids really benefit from these. Also, my eldest is a read and write learner, and she really benefits from writing in her journal, especially when painful situations happen, like, for example, arguments with friends. It really helps her process the situation. The last learning style is called kinesthetic. These learners love to learn through touching, moving, and doing. They really benefit from hands-on activities where they can touch what they are learning rather than simply reading instructions. They really want to learn things by touching and investigating them. They usually excel in sport and love to move. These are the people that never sit still. These are the kids that would really struggle with our current school system. Movement and gestures not only help them retain information, but it also helps them to calm down. And what sets them apart is that they don't do well with theory. They can better understand and retain information when it is practical. That's why they love case studies and actually applying what they have learned to their own life. They learn from the experience of doing something, and they actually really do value their own experiences. They don't so much care about other people's experiences. So they tend to learn best by trial and error. So here are some questions for yourself or for your children. Are you good at applied activities such as painting, cooking, mechanics, sports, and woodworking? Do you enjoy performing tasks that involve directly manipulating objects and materials? Do you have to actually practice doing something in order to learn it? And is it difficult for you to sit still for long periods of time? So if your child is a kinesthetic learner, there is literally no point giving them lengthy explanations. They tend to respond better by doing role play with them or by recalling past experiences. And they need lots of practice and lots of rest and movement. So a really effective way of discussing something with them would be to discuss something whilst going on a walk. So there you go, the 4 main learning styles. And as mentioned at the beginning of the video, we all have more than one learning style. So try something with your child, but if it's not working, just move on and try the next one. That's it for today. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave me a like and please leave me a comment and introduce yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching and keep growing.